geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Hit that record button. Yeah, so there's a good chance I'll be hitting the mute button multiple times throughout the day to clear my head. But
you have the spittoon there at the ready?
I've got everything at the ready. My wife was making me hot tea with honey, and then she gave me throat lozenges, but neglected to tell me that there's 2 layers of paper. Like it's not just a one and done. So I unwrapped it, popped it in my mouth, and after a couple minutes, I'm like, "What the hell's all of it?" Yeah, it was extra paper.
Those are fancy. Fancy lozenges.
I can do without that. Just why does it need 2 papers?
I'm so cheap. I refuse to buy a new bag because my current bag is like 7 years old.
Is there expiration date?
So it's very difficult for me to separate the cough drop at this point from the little wrapper.
Yeah, they do become one after a while. Mm-hmm. They should just make the paper like biodegradable.
They should just pop the whole thing in your mouth.
Pop the whole thing right in your mouth.
I know some people that do that with like the little sticks of gum. They just pop the whole thing in your. I don't know if they are aware that the paper is not.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding. I have known more than one person to do that. Just pop the whole thing.
What? I am questioning everything I know about humanity right now. That is wow. Okay.
But welcome to the Godzilla podcast, everyone.
Yes, we are 24/7 Godzilla right now. We might as well just change this podcast to the Kaiju cast.
There are so many out there that do that.
Yeah,
I applaud you.
But even then, after a while, you're kind of repeating yourself. Like how many times? I don't know. Yeah, Kaiju cast I've actually listened to a fair amount of times. I don't even know if they're still pumping out new episodes.
Maybe they could review new movies and just say, what would Godzilla think of this movie? And then take it from that perspective.
You think so? Godzilla's now like the third mic. Let's go to the big guy. Yeah. So, G, what do you think? So, yeah, Godzilla Minus One. Holy crap. It seems like we've been waiting forever. And at the same time, it just kind of like popped out of nowhere.
Plus the fact that it's the quickest on record Japanese Godzilla film to hit American theaters.
Right, because Shin Godzilla was what, 3 months?
That was the previous record holder.
Which was
that was 3 months. Yeah.
And this is only 1 month. And I know it's sad because I know when it dropped, I was immediately starting to see feedback online. And I'm like, I don't want to get my expectations up. I don't want to know anything.
Like, as you said, as soon as it was announced, somehow it had 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, obviously from people that haven't seen it.
All it takes is one review to pop it up to 100%.
It becomes valid once it opens in Japan, and then, they have access to it, and then us, but...
Or even early
how early really are those things valid? But that was a news item. The only movie to have 100% Rotten Tomatoes 3 months before anybody sees it, and it must be really good.
Yeah, someone should tell Bob Iger about that idea. Get ahead of the curve. Did you see? I'm jumping ahead to my news, but this is a stupid item. I just jotted down. So Bob Iger was in an interview, or he was doing something. Obviously, anybody who's listening, Bob Iger is CEO of Disney, and he claims that the Marvels suffered from lack of supervision on set. That's
lack of executive
supervision. I'm like, no, that's why it probably made as much as it did. You need to just keep your fingers out of it.
This statement is assuming that the Marvels is bad.
Well,
all that's wrong with the Marvels is it didn't do well at the box office.
And I didn't write this down, but I do see that Aquaman, the new Aquaman, like they're predicting 40 to 60 million, and they're already saying that it's going to be a moderate hit. And yet the Marvels, I think up to now has made 77 plus. and yet it's a box office failure.
Yeah, I am not going to bet on Aquaman 2. I'm sorry.
No, neither am I. Yeah, if I see that trailer one more time, I'm going to lose my freaking mind.
When is that supposed to be out? It's not out yet, right?
I think it's the 22nd. I think it's December 22nd.
So we got a month yet of trailers.
Yeah, that's all right. It'll be on Max by the 24th.
Yeah, Blue Beetle. It's on Max. I haven't watched it yet, but that's there.
I don't have any interest. I don't know. I am rooting for Black Manta. Take them all out.
Hey, this is a second shot. He really should.
I know, right? How many bad guys get like 2 movies back to back?
Back to back, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's bigger and badder now, kids.
Although that is more in line with what comics do, because you can't kill a villain for a long-running series.
I get
coming
it,
back and back and back and back.
But at least Batman had multiple, a rogues gallery of bad guys.
Right.
You could do a Riddler one movie. You could do the Joker another one. This is like, who you got? You got nobody. You got Black Manta.
Yeah. But I would always think when I would watch one of these early comic movies, like your Michael Keaton's Batman or even Spider-Man 1 or 2, like that's Dr. Octopus. You can't kill him. And after one movie, same with the Joker.
Yeah. Well, they did it with Green Goblin.
Again, and going with the storyline of the comic. Yeah. I accepted the death of the Green Goblin.
Oh, I agree with you on that. But he could have survived. Well, listen, we've seen him again anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I was just so mad that they didn't have James Franco become Hobgoblin. That's what I was thinking would happen.
But I think they were setting it up. I mean, obviously, his hatred for Peter Parker at the end of or not Peter, but he didn't know it was Peter at the time.
They just make him some like flying skate kid in Spider-Man 3. It's terrible.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yes, but
so, we digress.
We digress.
Yes. So Godzilla Minus One, fresh in the theater, just dropped on Thursday night.
And it's been less than 24 hours for us.
I will tell you, I am my head is in a soup right now. And yet I'm laying in bed last night in a fever, thinking of things that I need to add to my notes this morning, because I just walked out of the theater yesterday. I saw the 1:30, and there's a lot to take in.
So we were watching it simultaneously because I saw the 120 at my theater.
Oh,
yes.
Maybe we almost synced. I will tell you, these trailers and these ads at the beginning are just getting longer and longer. Unbelievable. We're beating a dead horse because we don't have any control over it.
But at least, we both go to Regal. They're no longer showing that movie quotes thing.
If only they had made more than one of those.
Right.
They could have done a whole series of that. And now I see that there's like a movie quote thing.
Like a game.
And you got to guess what it is. And it's like the lamest. Yeah, whatever.
I just want to point out that this was not a Fathom event. Usually.
Yeah.
Japanese films coming over here are like special one-off or 2-day events, right? This is a legit release in theaters, but still my Regal dropped the ball. Every Fathom event I've gone to at my local Regal, something has gone wrong.
Oh, no.
And this was no exception, even though it wasn't a Fathom event. As soon as the trailer started, the audio, it was very loud, but it was muffled. I don't know if it was so loud it was muffled, but I couldn't really make out anything that was being said in the trailers. And I'm like, well, if this continues during the movie, I'm going to get up and say something. But
even though it was all subtitled,
I didn't know. I don't know if it didn't say or not, if it was going to be dubbed or subtitled. So,
I don't think it is dubbed. This is fresh.
Yeah. So I thought to myself, if this is dubbed, I'm going to complain because I won't be able to understand what they're saying. Right. But if not, then I'll just, it doesn't matter. So, it didn't matter.
Yeah, I neglected to mention to my friend Frank that it was subtitled. I just let him experience it. He made it like 20 minutes into the movie and fell asleep.
No,
worst day ever. I had to nudge him awake when Godzilla made it on the shore.
The audio in my theater was very loud, and it needed to be.
Well, we thought that we were going to be forced to go and see this in IMAX. I mean, it just like it was like an event, and it was like an IMAX exclusive. Then all of a sudden, it was like, well, my Regal's showing it.
I think the closest IMAX that we normally go to is in Danbury, and they weren't showing it in IMAX in Danbury.
They were not. I would have been screwed then.
So again, you see the 130, I see the 120. Yep. I usually go for the earliest showing available, and this was in this case. Normally, the earliest showing is like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. I don't know if they underestimated and had less showings during the day.
I mean, my theater, because it's in a weird area. That is my first showing of the day.
Yeah.
There might have been an earlier showing of like some of the kid movies, maybe like Trolls or something. But yeah, I wish there was a 10:30. Let me get in, let me get out, let me digest it.
We were talking beforehand about buying the tickets, and you did not pre-buy.
No, I do not. I walk right in. I slap my phone down. I've got the unlimited. Give me a seat.
I did in this case because I was overly cautious. I wanted to get my normal seat because this is an event for me anyway. So I figure if it's an event for me, it's got to be an event for some other people. I bought the tickets maybe 3 weeks in advance, and there was like 2 seats already sold in the theater.
Okay.
But I got my normal sweet spot seats. And so when I get there yesterday and the movie starts, there's probably, I would say it's about 50% capacity, which for a Godzilla movie is impressive.
I had probably 50 people in my theater, which
50
was
people. Okay.
50, yeah, which was pretty substantial for a movie like this.
Yeah, and there was, still people walking in during the trailers, and of course, goes without saying that there's going to be a rabble rouser that comes in, usually at the last minute. So you're lulled into that false sense of security. Like, okay, this is a good crowd,
good crowd.
And then in comes the guy with his 2-year-old, his 4-year-old, and I think the oldest may have been 6 or 7. So 3 kids. And during the trailers were still unspooling as he came in, and they all sit down, and the kid, and this was about 3 rows behind me. So I could hear the kid clear as day. Like talking, I'm like,
here we go.
And he's talking up a storm. He doesn't care that he's in here. And
he's going to have to read.
Yeah.
If you got somebody sitting high above you, you're not reading those subtitles on the bottom.
Once the movie started, I didn't hear that kid again, unless he fell asleep or they left, and I don't think they left. Kudos to you, kid.
All right, that is good parenting. Listen, I've dragged my kid to movies that they probably should not have seen.
But no, let me correct that. I did hear him only once, and it was actually kind of funny. It was like midway through the movie, and there are long stretches here where you don't have Godzilla. And it was when the main couple that we'll get into are talking to each other. And the kid goes, blah, 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 because he couldn't understand. But he only did it the one time. And that's all. Funny. It was enough to make me chuckle. And then if he continued that.
That would have been great the entire movie. He's like, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Every Godzilla movie, right, you just want to get to the monster action. I can't imagine being a little kid sitting in the theater watching. And listen, the monster stuff is fantastic. But yeah, there's long stretches where.
But it's scary monster stuff. I have to give it to them that short of Shin Godzilla, this is probably the scariest version.
He is a force of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we'll get into it because there's some gorgeous visuals going on here with some of this stuff. And do we want to talk about what our backup feature is? Because this is an odd. It actually is a nice pairing. But it's something that probably most people aren't even aware of.
And the title of this movie, as it is showing on Amazon, doesn't help either. Shin Kamen Rider, or as we watched it, Shin Masked Rider.
Yeah.
I don't know if they think it would be more palatable.
Yeah, just like when they changed license revoked to James Bond to a license to kill because they didn't think that the American audiences knew what the word revoked meant. So.
Well, if you look around your theater at any given moment, maybe they have a point.
I think that kid behind you would be like, blah, blah, blah.
What's a license?
Yeah, correct. The Shin alone is enough to kind of throw you off because this is now the 3rd Shin movie that we've reviewed. Right. Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and now Shin Kamen Rider. And so you're thinking, well, maybe is this like a shared universe? No, not at all.
Nope.
Shin is just a fancy Japanese word for new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but we'll get there. We've got to get through Godzilla first before we get to Kamen Rider.
Right. Do we have any news?
We do have some news. We already mentioned Bob Iger's stupid comment, so we'll jump past that. Roger Castell. 92 years old. There's probably a lot of people right now who do not recognize that name, but you do know his work. 92-year-old. He is a famed commercial illustrator. Made his living painting romance novels and sci-fi novel covers. But he's painted two of the most iconic movie posters in the last 50 years. First being Jaws. The Jaws poster.
Right.
Now, he did not come up with the original design. When the book was released, the novel, the Peter Benchley novel, was originally released in hardcover. They used the design of the little swimmer with the shark coming up, but the shark is much more undefined. Somebody actually referred to it as a penis with teeth. They're very, very unassuming, very, nothing. And then this guy was brought in to basically repaint this for the paperback version. And this is where we get the now iconic, often imitated monster shark with the giant teeth, just Leviathan coming out of the deep. You just see his head as he's barreling down on the young lady swimming in the nude. And the studio loved it so much that they just picked it up and used it for the movie poster, which is almost unheard of.
Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
So it was originally just meant for the paperback version. But he also created the iconic Empire Strikes Back poster from 1980. Now, this is the one collectors refer to it as the Gone with the Wind version, which is the Han Solo and Leia kind of big heads. He's leaning down on her as they're getting ready to kiss. Very Rhett Butler, Scarlett O'Hara kind of feel. But those are his contributions.
I always assumed that was a Drew Struzan.
No, Drew Struzan's work is very iconic as well. You think about it, these guys, they're painting in oils back then. And a lot of times this artwork, he'd hand in the board, they would take it, get high resolution copies, and then they would throw the original artwork away.
These were things to get excited about in the theater lobby as well.
Oh, yeah. No, they're almost, it's funny because back then it was like a means to an end. It was like, well, we need a poster. We need something to sell this thing. But now, and you brought up Drew Struzan, which really kind of elevated the art form to it's not just a commercial illustration. It is artwork. It is, I've gone to gallery showings of Drew Struzan's work, and it is something to behold. It is just gorgeous. And sometimes these guys are, they're working on deadlines. They're banging this crap out because, studios need a poster. Studios need a book cover.
Yeah.
So, yep. So next time you see that Jaws poster, that was Roger Castell.
Did he pass?
He did, 92. And I'm going to bring this up. I hate getting into politics, but Christina is not here, so we can't get her take. But Melissa Barrera has been let go from Scream 7 because of her social media comments concerning the Israeli-Hamas war. So she was released, and then Jenna Ortega the very next day said, well, you know what? Then I'm no longer a part of this either. So now Scream 7, which I think only has a script. They haven't started filming or anything. The two main characters have dropped out. One dropped out, one was fired. Because we didn't even talk about Susan Sarandon also getting let go for voicing an opinion that didn't align with her studios or her agency. She's come out and apologized. All right.
So what does this mean for Scream? Nev Campbell? There you go.
I'm sure she's sitting there waiting for her phone to ring. I don't know. Jenna Ortega's made a very big name for herself. And I think her character, Tara, was really just the little plucky sister.
Yeah, because she's doing Beetlejuice 2 at the moment.
Yeah,
I think that was the official line from hers. Like, I'm too busy. No Scream.
Okay. Oh, so she didn't directly address
I don't think so.
Barrera firing.
I could be wrong, but I think that was the official
But
reason.
you're right. This is very, very touchy stuff that I guess we'll keep an eye on this one or maybe they just let the franchise die. That's not going to happen.
That's never going to happen.
So, and that really was all the news I have. I don't have anything. I want to get into this
Yeah, speaking of letting the franchise die, we could begin our discussion of Godzilla Minus One by bringing up Shin Godzilla, which ended on a huge cliffhanger, which begged for a sequel that apparently we'll never get.
Why? Could they not? They couldn't work out the logistics of it, because that's what they wanted, right? I mean, that was huge.
Well, in 2018, and I don't know if this is true, but I have never heard this as a reasoning for not making a movie. Maybe it should be from this point on, but this is new to me. Shin Godzilla was so good that they felt they couldn't live up to it, and that's why there's no sequel.
We would never have a sequel ever again.
No.
That's the whole point.
But I guess that there were some story ideas thrown out there
Okay.
for the sequel, but none of them really stuck. None of them Toho were happy with. So they decided not to go forward.
Well, see, I already brought it up before, which is to create these Shin movies into one cohesive universe.
But the tones are so wildly different.
Tone is so different. That might be wonky, though.
Yeah, you could.
I don't know. Yeah, listen, after this movie, I don't need a Shin Godzilla sequel.
Especially after watching this first movie, Godzilla Minus One. When I approached the concession stand, because even though I prepaid for my tickets, I still had to get my free popcorn because I had my points. The guy in front of me was by himself. He's probably early 30s, right? He says, "One for Godzilla Minus One." And the guy behind the counter was like, "Oh, masterpiece." He's like,
wow, he's setting the bar really high.
He is.
Wow.
So the guy suddenly tells him this sob story. He says, yeah, I asked my buddy to come with me, and he said no. And then I asked another buddy, and he said no. So yeah, I'm here by myself. I'm like, what are you looking for? A violin?
You need new friends, Mike. Yeah. So in other words, nobody wants to be seen in the theater.
Exactly. And he's sharing this with everyone that he can.
I was shot down. I had a buddy. I said, I'm going to see Godzilla. And he's like, yeah, I had no interest in that.
And the guy that you did go with.
Yes, Frank's always in. Frank's always good to go.
All right. That's good.
Although he did, like I said, he fell asleep. So I don't know. Maybe he just needs 3 hours away from the house. I got him away so he didn't have to decorate his house with Christmas lights.
So Godzilla Minus One. I went into this knowing as little as I could possibly know.
I agree. Yeah.
I knew it was a period piece set around World War II. And I've obviously seen the poster, so I knew what Godzilla looked like, but that's all I knew. I didn't know what the plot was or anything else. And the great thing is it starts out, there's so many callbacks to the first movie.
Oh, there's some beautiful callbacks.
Yeah. The first being Odo Island is where Godzilla is seen for the first time in this movie, in the original. It opens up with, and let me pronounce his name, try to do it correctly the first time, so then we'll get it.
Yeah, good luck.
Kiyoshi. Maybe we should call him Shikishima is his last name.
Shikishima. Let's go with Koichi.
So we see him landing his plane. It's you get the legend that it's 1945, final days of World War II. So you see him landing his plane on what is basically an island that's like a pit stop for Japanese airplanes. And there's a flight crew.
It's like a mechanic's garage.
Yeah.
In the middle of the ocean.
So if something goes wrong with their planes, if they get shot or whatever, and they're still able to fly, they land on this island and they get fixed up as much as they can. And then they fly off again back into the fray. So you see this guy, and I knew that this was going to be a huge event. Like as soon as this plane came in, because the stereo, the speakers were reverberating with the engines of this plane. Like, yes, this is how it needs to be. So he lands, and they're immediately suspect because they're like, "There's nothing wrong with this plane. What is up, Kiyoshi?" So apparently he is deserter too strong a word?
No, I think that's exactly what. Yeah, he deserted his post. I mean, the one mechanic, what's his name? Tachibana immediately calls him out on it, and he's like, "What are you implying?" And then kind of storms away. But yeah, if you're a kamikaze pilot, you're not supposed to come back. You're not supposed to. That makes me like, why would you even like have a place to fix your plane? So if your plane's broken, just crash it into something. That's your whole job anyways. But yeah, so this immediately sets up, we're introduced to Koichi. And we're not there very long before we get our Godzilla on shore.
Yeah, and this is spectacular. This is more in line with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, because he's not a full size. He's maybe 25, 30 feet tall.
Yeah. So what is it, like 2 or 3 times the size of the Tyrannosaur in Jurassic Park?
Yeah, he's definitely a lot more fearsome than the T-Rex. But this attack, and it's funny because I was thinking I was talking to my son recently, and I said, in Kong Skull Island, we've seen Kong eat. Like he eats for sustenance. We've never seen Godzilla eat anything.
Right.
Maybe if you want to use the Roland Emmerich's Godzilla eating fish. But otherwise, I don't know if he just sustains himself on radiation. But he doesn't necessarily eat the people here, but he is grabbing them in his mouth and flinging them.
Oh, yeah, he's egregiously tossing them.
Yeah. These guys are all in hiding. These guys are all down in the trenches. They've got the camouflage over top of them. They're hiding in this trench, and they're trying to get Koichi back. Go back to your plane. Go back to your plane and shoot this thing.
Because he's got like a heavy duty machine gun on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he's a warplane, and he can't do it. He freezes up.
He actually does go into the plane, so
he does make
it gets that far.
And boy, that thing's right on top of him. I mean, he's got such a face shot there. And that's where you really see this. And it is just, this is one thing I will say about this Godzilla. It is like, it's almost, I want to say like, he's almost like mindless in the sense that he's just like this lumbering creature. It's not like he's really looking around. He's just, I don't know. There's really something scary and off about this version.
Yeah. And he gets mad easily, this guy.
Well, but it's funny because these guys have clearly been on this island for a long time. And yet he only shows up when Koichi shows up, and Koichi can't get the job done. He gets knocked, everything blows up. He wakes up the next morning, and lo and behold, everybody's been killed, but him and Toshibana.
Yeah, symbolically, does he represent his inability, his fear of war? Godzilla is just haunting him throughout this movie.
Well, yes, that's interesting that you say that, because I really feel that Godzilla represents this guy's. He's got this guilt. He's got this personal demon. This monster is following him wherever he goes. He's got these shortcomings. He couldn't save these people. And this thing is just like, no matter where he goes, it just kind of like lumbers after him.
Yeah.
And it's like, this thing is just like tethered to you.
And on the island, one of the mechanics says, "Oh, that's Godzilla. This is what the Islanders talk about," which is, again, in line with that first movie. So, they know this thing's name as soon as they see it. So does Kiyoshi. So he, when he hears that there's a monster, when he goes back home, he's like, "Oh, that's Godzilla. That's the same thing that and he can't even dismiss it as a nightmare because he's got those pictures. Because
that didn't do him any good. Toshibana like, "Oh yeah, by the way, here, why don't you hold on to all these lovely pictures of these people who
you killed,
you let killed ever see their family again."
But it's sad because Tachibana kind of forgives him before Godzilla shows up. Tachibana forgives him for being cowardly, as a kamikaze pilot. Because he says to him, as he's, he stomps away after he says, "What are you implying?" Right. After he says, "There's nothing wrong with your plane." Then the mechanic comes over to Kiyoshi and he says, "Why, I understand. Why obey an order to die honorably when the outcome to this war is now clear? You're doing it for nothing."
He even says, "I wish there were more like you," kind of a thing, which is interesting because I think this is what I thought was absolutely fascinating. Is that the social commentary here is all back on Japan. It's all back on the Japanese government. The U.S. are not bad guys. They never once portray the U.S. as the bad guys. They're squarely putting all their misery on the Japanese government for putting them in this position. And I found that absolutely fascinating.
It is pointed out more than once that the U.S. are unwilling to help.
Well, but they explained that they don't want to ratchet up tensions with Russia.
I don't really get that.
That was the explanation. That was the explanation.
But I'm like, well, Russia.
Yeah, we're
be
going to have to
mad
deal with this ourselves because the U.S. does not want to get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already dropped 2 giant bombs on you. We're done here. Yeah, you're on your own. And this is like really heart-wrenching seeing how these people survived after this event. When he comes home and just to see like their village and town completely decimated, people are like living in mud holes.
It's just ruins because he's back home in Tokyo. So
Right.
It's not like the irradiated areas.
No, but it's still bombed.
Conventionally bombed.
Yeah.
And it's just ruins.
Yeah.
And his neighbor, that woman that lives next door to him.
Mrs. Kravitz. Sumiko. And she's portrayed like an old lady, but I think she's probably in her 30s.
Yeah. But just like you said, she knows that he was a kamikaze pilot. He's not
right.
supposed to be home.
Back? What are you doing back? Right. No. You had a job.
You should be dead. That's what basically she tells him.
Yeah. And he's like, well, what happened to my parents? And she's just completely dismissive. She goes, they're all dead.
Because of you, she says.
Because you didn't do your job. I am going to say right now, the one thing that's always lacking in these Godzilla movies is the human element. It's always kind of like just get from point A to point B. It's always a military exercise. This is the heart and soul of this movie, is this poor guy who is just, again, this thing is just a personal demon that just continues to haunt him. And I found this absolutely fascinating, this idea. He meets Noriko, who is a homeless woman, and she has a baby, Akiko, and she ends up moving in with him, and there's nothing salacious going on. She just kind of needs a place to stay, and baby's not hers, and they just have to kind of survive.
Yeah, and she accepts him for who he is because, well, she's got no other choice.
No, she doesn't. And but he's like very, very tight to the vest. He doesn't want to divulge. Matter of fact, it was quite a ways into their relationship before he even mentions Godzilla.
Yeah, because I think he's in denial. But
right, correct.
Yeah, and you can only assume that Godzilla just went away because he didn't have it in him to shoot. The plane is destroyed. He survives. He gets out of the plane and survives. Yeah. And the only other one that survives on that island is the main mechanic.
Yeah, Tachibana. Yeah.
And so, as we said, he's the one that hands him an envelope of all the soldiers, or the mechanics, I should say, that died on the island. So he can, as if like it's not hurtful enough that he did. That was always like, be reminded.
That was really rubbing salt in the wound there.
Yeah.
He's like, here, just in case you don't feel bad enough, let me just throw this at you.
Yeah.
So, but we jump 45 to what? 47?
We jump, I think at one point it goes to 45 to 46 and then to 47.
Okay.
So you see some progression
with the house. They finally, because he ends up finding a job.
Yeah.
He does find a job. This Shinsei Maru, a modified ship. And then when he gets there and it's just made out of wood. He's like, modified? This thing's like a piece of crap. It was like Luke Skywalker walking up on the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
What a piece of junk.
Yep.
But it's quickly explained to him that they will be sweeping for mines left over in the ocean. And guess what? They're magnetic. So if we have a metal boat, these things we're not going to last very long.
Yeah,
so
it's basically, it's the orca, the Falcon,
I'm
the
telling
orca.
You right now, there was whoever wrote this script had just watched Jaws 100 times. There are so many callbacks to Jaws, and I'm not making that like it's a bad thing, because there are a couple, especially when they're out on the water, and we're introduced to the captain and the doc and the kid as the crew on this ship, and they're fantastic. The 4 of them together. You're right. It is the orca, and they're out there, and all of a sudden, they're just cleaning mines, and here comes Godzilla.
You get the dorsal fins, and that's kind of a pull from the
Legendary,
the Legendary series, because they do that as well.
Yes,
but it doesn't matter. They do it so well here.
It doesn't matter, right? Because we never, until Legendary, you never saw that aerial shot of him going underneath a boat in the water either. With the silhouette. So that's fine. I'm not opposed to, picking and choosing shots from other studios that have made. We do get a flashback to, I think you said in 46, it was like the Bikini Atoll detonations when they were testing bombs. And is this like a canon event for all Godzilla movies? Like, this is where he mutates.
Yeah.
In every movie.
So in some movies, they say he's awoken by the blast,
Yep.
like in
Yep.
your Godzilla or Godzilla Raids Again. So he's already kind of big. In this particular movie, this is what mutates him from like a relatively big kind of T-Rex size to a monster who can now breathe atomic fire.
Yeah. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I'm hoping that on the back end, we're going to talk about Monarch a little bit.
Yeah. I'm
Because
not all the way caught up, but
okay. But we also see the Bikini Atoll bomb explosion there as well, but it's in a different context.
Yeah, it doesn't create Godzilla's already.
No, it just pisses him off.
There. Yeah.
Right. It's just like, what do you really? This is what you're gonna do? Blow this thing up in my face? Yeah.
But you were saying before how usually these movies just amount to the human story being an excuse to get you to the monsters, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself that I would watch this movie without Godzilla because this is I really loved these characters.
Yes, no, right. You're invested in this flawed character who he couldn't do his job. He's now saddled with trying to protect this little girl and Noriko. And he doesn't want any of it. He doesn't want any responsibilities. He thinks he's a piece of crap. Well, the neighbor's telling him he's a piece of crap at every turn. Although she does end up babysitting Akiko. But this scene on the boat where they're clearing the mines and all of a sudden here comes Godzilla. And this scene where you're seeing the boat, and the boat's not that big. Maybe 25 foot.
It's bigger. It's bigger than the Orca. I'll give it that.
Not by much, though. And the scene of Godzilla swimming behind them with his head above water is terrifying. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you really just get a sense of the scale of this thing.
Because it eats the other boat, their sister boat, because that's their whole job is they have this cable in between the two boats and they pick up the landmines and then they shoot them to blow them up. And they've got a couple of these landmines on the boat. So after the Godzilla, it's almost, like a scene from the Meg where the Godzilla comes out of the water and bites that boat in half, their sister boat. So now they're booking and Godzilla's chasing them. And the only thing that they can do is set the landmines loose on them. Yeah,
something. And it's doing no good until he gets one in its mouth.
Even though Kiyoshi freezes up, he is a good shot. Yeah. So he is good at the mine job. So once that thing is in his mouth, it's almost like that moment in King Kong versus Godzilla where they have like the dynamite sticks when Kong is on the raft behind the boat.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't work and they've got to shoot the dynamite. That's the same thing that happens here.
Well, this was Jaws. This was the air tank in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does some serious damage.
It does. It's
half his
surprising.
Cheek is ripped off, and then he starts regenerating.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah.
So this is kind of new in the Godzilla lore to the point where we're watching him regenerate like that, or no?
It is. It is. Previous Godzillas were just impervious to anything like this.
I mean, right. And he would go nuclear inside or whatever, just kind of combust.
Yeah.
Boy.
But this guy, he is susceptible. So, and especially they figure out if you attack him from the inside. Yeah.
All we got to do is feed him enough tacos and maybe he'll just, but this is also where we get our first exposure to the nuclear ray blast.
Oh.
And so we've seen it 100 times, but the camera starts on his tail and each one of his dorsal fins pops. They actually pop out like a toy and start glowing blue. And it just works his way from the bottom of his tail all the way up to his head. And the music is swelling. And you are just like, holy crap, here we go. It was definitely something to behold.
And when he does emit the heat ray, it's like a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
So this Godzilla is much more destructive in that regard than any in the past. Yeah. Well, Shin Godzilla was pretty.
Yeah,
his was pretty good too. But this is literally a nuclear explosion going off when he emits that heat ray.
Yeah, and you really think, all right, these guys are not going to survive this. And then the other warship comes in and couple little missiles to the side of Godzilla.
So this is like the big action sequence midway through the movie. So there's pretty much three major action set pieces. You've got the Odo Island at the beginning. You've got this in the middle. Well, four, I should say.
Four, yeah, I was gonna say, because you got the land attack.
You got the land attack, and then you've got the end battle.
Yeah.
So in between, of course, it goes back to Kiyoshi, and it's funny because going back to this human story, judgments are made not only of Kiyoshi coming back home, but because his fellow sailors now on the mining boat also know that he's a kamikaze pilot.
Yeah.
So, but they still accept
former
kamikaze pilot. But the neighbor, and you assume everybody else, is also raising their eyebrows because he's taken this girl in and the
Correct.
baby.
Yeah, because at one point when they're all having dinner, I think the captain actually refers to her as his wife, and he quickly corrects him. He's
yeah,
like,
and then he's like, "Well, what's the matter with you?" You know,
right? Why don't you make her an honest woman? No, I don't want any of this.
Yeah.
She just kind of invited herself in, and
because years go by. Because as you said, he comes back after the war, and years go by, and they're still not married. They're still just living as roommates.
No, they're just
basically.
living. It's like a relationship of convenience.
And then a little girl, Akiko, calls him daddy, and she's like, "Oh, remember?"
I know that was a move, though. I'm sorry. He's like, "I told you, I'm not your daddy." I'm like,
but one of the guys calls him out right there. It's like, "What's the matter with you?" It's like that's forever
right.
Harmful.
This kid doesn't know anybody else. Her parents were killed, jerk. But you can't help but like hope for redemption with this guy
because you like him.
Yes, yeah. No, you like you said. Take away the monster elements, and this still is a compelling story. And especially when you start getting into the doc, and they find out that the doc is like really this kind of like this genius. He's involved with the military, and they bring him in, and he's the one who devises the plan to take out Godzilla. Although I'm going to say right now, when they were explaining what they wanted to do, I'm like, that's never going to work. It just like, I don't know. I'm not buying it at all, but. Yeah, before we get there, this is Godzilla makes it onto shore in Ginza.
Yeah.
But this is where this thing, like he makes it on land, and it's just pure destruction, but there's no like rhyme or reason to it. It's like he's in a zombie-like state. He's just lumbering forward. They kept the main design of Godzilla. They don't, go crazy, redesign them, because he's got the big, heavy lumbering hips. But this is really the first time, concrete is just ripping up. People are flying as this thing's walking. There's a scene where a bunch of guys are on the roof, and it's all like from their shot as this whole thing collapses, and there's some, like you said, there's some fantastic callbacks to the original movie, and then especially in this scene where he picks up the train
in his mouth. Yep.
And you get the reporters on the rooftop, calling out everything that's unfolding. He's coming towards us. He's got a big head. As
the scene in the original, because all those reporters are on the tower saying that, this is the end. Here he comes. Signing off here.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And these guys do the same thing. But as you said, he almost bypasses them, because they are on like almost eye to eye level, because they're on the top of this building. But then like his tail takes out the building that they're on. And you see from their vantage point, and it's almost like somebody that's got a fear of heights, a nightmare for them, because you see from their vantage point, the building falling, and then they fall to their demise.
Yeah. And this is one thing I like about this design, which is sometimes the Godzilla suit, the tail is so massive that it doesn't make any sense to me. But the way this one is that it's almost like they purposely went out of the way to make it look like it was still hanging on wires. Like his tail kind of curves toward the end, because obviously in the older movies, it's a suit. I don't know. It was just a weird thing I picked up on. Oh my God, that's a nice little,
Yeah, because none of this is suitmation, as they call it. It is all CGI.
No, this is all CG.
But it's done so well. It's
and on a shoestring budget.
Yeah. And maybe this is part of the reason why you've got so many, a lot of the movie is non-effects shots. It's, human. And they really do concentrate all their powers into these big action sequences, and it works. You just have to make that human story compelling. And they did it here.
Yeah. Where unlike in Shin Godzilla, it was just military guys running from office to office.
Yeah.
We don't care about the military.
Mm-hmm.
These are human. These are people on the ground. Real people that are being affected by this thing.
And it made me think that this is a more successful version of what they were trying to do in Godzilla Raids Again with all these cannery guys, because they were trying in that movie, and I'm going to take a stretch here by comparing the two, but they were trying to make that original Godzilla more intimate, I would think, with Godzilla Raids Again, because it's really based on these specific people and how they're dealing with the monster attacks. But it's done in such an uninteresting fashion that you really want to get away from this cannery soap opera to the monster action. But here it's by necessity. There is no military at this point because it's been decommissioned from the aftermath of World War II. So really the citizenry has no choice but to take this upon themselves to try to fix the problem.
This is like an uprising here. This is like people banding together. It's like, well, we can't rely on anybody else, so we have to figure this out ourselves.
But Noriko is on the train that ends up in Godzilla's mouth, unfortunately.
And this is a crazy sequence.
I'm going to say that this was a callback to King Kong 1976. Okay. I'm going to go out there and say it. Even if the filmmakers don't want to admit it, this reminded me a lot of that sequence when Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges are on the subway car. Noriko is hanging off gymnast style on one of the poles, and thankfully Godzilla pivots over the water, so she falls and survives.
Only to get blown away minutes later.
Now, this is a little bit of a cheat, I'll have to say, because all Kiyoshi has to do is go around the corner to avert certain death from Godzilla's nuclear blast.
Yeah, well, maybe that was a well-preserved building.
Maybe the foundations were firm of that building, right? So he did survive. But
she pushes him in there, and then she gets the full blast.
Noriko gets blown away, literally.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is because you kind of see it from his point of view, which is the massive blast that blows her away, but then you get the reverse blast as it comes back the other, like it's just like it just shows chaos,
like the backdraft.
And he makes his way out, and everything is just gone, including Noriko.
So now he's got to deal with this poor guy.
Yeah, so now I got to deal with this baby.
So he's a widower before he even worked up the courage to marry her.
Yep.
And by this time, the neighbor has come around, thankfully. She's no longer spitting at him every time that she sees him. She's actually
looking after the kid during the day.
Because she pointed out when she was first insulting him when he came back from Odo Island that her family died as well because of him. Not only his family, but her family died as well because of him, and he didn't do his job. Mm-hmm. But because of that, she's very susceptible to Akiko and taking care of her because her family is gone. And we didn't really talk about, there's a montage before Godzilla reappears full size, before that great scene with the mining boat. There's a montage with an English language voiceover from, you can assume it's the American military, saying that this ship has been attacked. But General MacArthur is denying Japan any aid because, as you said, the situation with the Soviets in the Cold War. So, yeah, they're on their own.
Well, this is where we have the big meeting.
Yeah, this is where we have
the Doc kind of unveils his plan. And he had what looks like a water tank covered in a little sheet. And I'm like, oh, we're going oxygenator, but they did not go that route.
Yeah, let me reveal my plan. As you say, it's under a big sheet. So
it reminds me of like Doc Brown, like he's got the little wooden Godzilla. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's not the scale. I didn't have time to whittle it out, but he has got a little wooden Godzilla.
There's a scene like this in every Godzilla movie where like the military unveils its plan, so you get a little science lesson.
Yeah, this is where I felt that the science did not hold up, because I'm like, that's not going to work. Their plan was to take the oxygenators that are going to, like these tanks that are going to pump out Freon.
Look, the Freon bubbles sinks this model, and it will do the same thing to Godzilla.
Right, but he lives under the water. Apparently he does. So they want to get him over this trench. They're going to wrap him in this thing, ignite the Freon tank so that the air bubbles force him to drop, and he's going to be crushed by the pressure of
the water pressure. Yeah.
But he lived, and then if that doesn't work,
somebody does call them out in the crowd saying, "But he's a water creature." But it's like, right. It doesn't matter. And anything, even water creatures won't survive under this pressure.
Right. And then it's like, well, and if this doesn't work, then we're just going to release this giant balloon that'll catapult him back up, and he's going to die from the bends. Like, that was their plan. And I'm like,
but at the same time, it's not going to work because Kiyoshi has to have his redemption, right? And so he's supposed to fly in this super, rare plane that was developed.
Oh, tell me this plane was not that cool. This is right out of a James Bond.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. It is a real prototype of this. It is a Kiyoshi J7W Shinden fighter jet. And what's amazing, like, there's no tail. Like, you got the wings, and then you've got this long pointed nose with like stabilizers on the front of it. So it looks very much like a rocket ship.
Yeah. And when you're seeing it in flight, it looks like it's flying backwards because there's no tail.
There's no tail. But it's not flight worthy. So we need a mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
I know a mechanic. So then we get this little drawn out sequence where he's trying to find
Tachibana.
So who wants nothing to do with this guy.
Right. So if there was, this movie is over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So if there was any sequence that could have been trimmed, I think it would have been this one, right. Between the attack on the city and the end.
Because he does need redemption. He does need, this is the one guy that he needs to kind of come clean with. And Tachibana doesn't want anything to do with him. They can't find him. He's going to like the clerk's office to try and find people. It's like, listen, we got people missing left and right. We had 2 giant bombs go off recently. Yeah. Not sure if you paid attention, but we've got bigger issues.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He starts writing hate mail. He's the original internet troll. If I just write hate mail, eventually you're going to respond to me.
But what is this, a 15-minute sequence where he's looking for this guy?
It does go on. It does go on for
so
too
I
long.
Would have accepted if he just we found him. Here he is. I would have accepted that.
Right. And he gets him because he writes a letter saying that it's all your fault. Yeah, I'd punch you in the face too. Jerk.
So regardless, it works. He finds the mechanic. Yeah. Okay, I'll do it.
And he's got like this A-team with him that's going to retrofit this thing and get it flight worthy.
The emotional payoff at the end, you see coming from a mile away.
Yeah, there's 2 reveals that make perfect sense. You're like, all right, well, yeah.
Kiyoshi, he's leaving on this mission. He leaves the neighbor money to take care of Akiko.
Yeah.
Like, he knows he's not coming back. He's going to fulfill his order as a kamikaze
the only thing
pilot.
He can do is take this thing out.
And he's going to release his demons in doing so. He's going to sacrifice himself.
Right down the gullet.
Yeah. So that this plan with the water pressure is not going to work going into it because he's got to do this to redeem himself.
The whole point was to catch Godzilla before he even makes it to Tokyo. And yet all of a sudden he's on land and you're like, well, you failed that mission.
Because they're looking at where he is. They're like, okay, we predict he's going to be here at 1100 hours.
Right. Yeah.
So, but no, of course, Godzilla is not going along with their time schedule. So he shows up earlier. What? He's here already? We're not ready.
Right. Correct. Tell him to go back. Come back an hour later. So yeah, all it takes is the little plane to buzz him a couple times to get him to turn around and chase this thing right back into the wall.
As you were saying, Tachibana, as he's going over the way that they've tricked out this plane, is saying, okay, you've got to hit that safety button before the bomb will actually go off. But before we even got to that part where the plane is completed, Tachibana touches the seat in a very meaningful way. So
Well, not only that, we actually get a reference during the meeting scene, and someone is calling out the Japanese government for putting these guys in positions to kill themselves for the honor of and they said that they don't even put ejection seats in these planes. Like, they make a point of mentioning that, you were going to die if you were a kamikaze pilot because you didn't even have an option to escape.
Yeah.
So it was already laid in. But yeah, it is a little ham-handed that he's checking out the seat, and you're like, oh, maybe he's gonna put one in there, and then you get the little quiet conversation that we're not privy to, and yeah. So it was telegraphed.
The government didn't care about lives, and we do. So,
But there was still a fair amount of people like, you know what? I don't want any part of this. They walked out. And then the handful left is all right, let's do this. Yeah. So right. So now they have to scramble because Godzilla is already on land. So now this is a fantastic sequence, though, because they have to take these two warboats and they're dragging these Freon bombs, or what, I don't even know what you want to refer to them as, in like daisy chains. And they have to basically circle each other in order to entrap Godzilla and wrap it around him.
This thing almost looks like a Batman utility belt. So not only are these Freon bubbles activated, but this utility belt also has the flotation devices for Plan B. If that doesn't
they
work.
built these things really quick, by the way.
Yes, they did.
All right, here's my plan. Okay, we're on it.
But as he said, Godzilla makes land before he's supposed to. So they have to get him back into the water over this trench, and they have to use Kiyoshi to do it. So it's almost like Megalon in Godzilla versus Megalon being led by Jet Jaguar.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's the same
Very
thing.
much so. All it takes is one thing to be like, all right, I'm going to chase you now.
So Kiyoshi buzzes Godzilla's head a couple of times, and he's taking a chance because he might get blasted.
There's a point where he was going to bite right down. Now he was getting close.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, dude. Yeah,
but it works. Godzilla starts to follow the plane out to sea, and Kiyoshi gets him where he needs to be,
which is over this trench.
Yeah, but what was he going to do if Plan A and Plan B worked? Then he would have been haunted by that. Like I do. Was he still going to fly the plane into the ocean? I don't know.
I guess we'll never know. This whole sequence is fantastic. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way that it's edited. And at one point, these two battleships are racing in opposite, clockwise and counterclockwise. And they go past each other to the point where they actually rub.
Yeah.
Why they had to get that close, I have no idea. But it was like, hey, hold on, we're gonna have to hit.
Well, hey, these are civilian pilots, right? So they're
that is true.
Yeah.
That is true. They probably didn't have, but they're able to successfully wrap him. They deploy the Freon. Boom, down he goes.
But
He's
before that
sorry.
happened, Godzilla blasted his heat ray. And like why that didn't destroy both boats, I don't know. But remember, he
then the end of the movie would not have happened.
Well, because then they're like, it's now or never, because now he's got to regenerate the heat.
Oh, that's
ray.
right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's got a limited window to regenerate.
Yeah. So
and he was taking some battle damage. So
he was, yeah.
So.
And I loved this Godzilla that, after he did take battle damage and regenerated, you could see the scar tissue for the rest of the movie, that scar tissue on his jaw where his, where the mine went off in his face, you could see the whole time.
Yeah. That's going to look really bad on his Tinder profile. Ooh,
but let me point out that we haven't talked about the music yet.
No, but this is where this sequence kicks in, because he's getting ready to fire and everything goes silent. But before that, you get the original Godzilla theme. And it just swells. And I'm in my seat like a 4-year-old, just like eating it up.
Yeah. And not only do you get the original Godzilla scene, because you hear it as well when he's attacking the city earlier,
but not to this level where it is pure joy.
But you're also getting strains when he's attacking the city of the Mothra theme, which is when when the reporters, especially during that sequence, you hear the so that's lifted right from Mothra versus Godzilla.
I might have to listen a little bit harder.
And then when they're circling Godzilla at the end, you hear strains of King Kong versus Godzilla, when the Islanders are like da 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 da. They're mining multiple Godzilla movies here.
Well, the director Yamakasi, I guess he came out and his favorite Godzilla movie is Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, giant monsters all out attack. So yeah, this guy has done his homework, and he not only did he direct this, but he also wrote it and supervised the visual effects.
Well, good job. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Give this man another one.
Yeah.
This is, but yeah, this is like you said, we go from dead silence and everyone's just waiting. He's powering up, man. It's just a matter of seconds. And then you just get that roar of that engine. And again, you knew it was coming, right? You knew it was coming. And he just barrels that ship right into his mouth. Doink.
And their plan almost works, I have to say, before the plane flies in, because you do see Godzilla breaking down as he's being jettisoned back up to the surface. So you see his skin start to deteriorate, but it's not enough to actually kill him. So yeah, the plane flies into his mouth just as he's powering up again for the next atomic blast. And they do it again. It's a callback to the American Godzilla, because whenever Godzilla in the legendary movies does the build up to the atomic blast, you hear that you hear it building up. Roar, yeah, and it's a similar effect here. The plane flies right in, and you do see something come off the plane.
You knew it was coming. Parachute.
So not only is it the effect of the bombs and the plane going into his mouth, but I think it also internalizes Godzilla's heat.
Yeah, that was my take as well, which is he's now swallowing his own nuclear blast,
which blows off the top of his head completely.
Yeah, which is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So
and then the rest of them just disintegrates,
just crumbles.
Yeah.
I do have a minor quibble about these scenes right here. So he's clearly over a giant trench. So how does he stand in the water? Because he's clearly waist high up. And I'm like, if we looked under the water, are his feet doing like little ducky paddles?
But that's a question for every single Godzilla movie.
I know,
right?
But you've gone to such a great extent of building this world out. And it's like, yeah, that's a cheat. Because clearly he is over a giant 3-mile deep trench. And yet he's standing waist deep in the water. I'm like, maybe his tail is like a giant propeller.
Maybe it is.
And he's just like keeping him afloat. I don't know. We get the little flashback where Tachibana tells him to eject, save your life, and go live for Akiko. So that's what he does.
That's what he does. He ejects. Yeah. He survives at the end. And not only does he survive, we get an extra happy ending.
I was actually very happy with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Noriko has somehow survived the atomic blast of Godzilla's heat ray. And she has been found. Maybe she's been unconscious this whole time and has just woken up. But she's in hospital.
Yeah, they probably didn't know who she was. I mean, she clearly had bandages on her head. So let me ask you this, though, because it looks like she had a weird tattoo on her neck.
Yes, I'm like, what did she get a tat while she was under?
I mean, I was taking it maybe radiation poisoning. It almost looked like the spine of Godzilla.
Yeah, I've been seeing comment online saying that that's what it looks like as well to them. So this harkens back to those humanoid figures coming off the humanoids coming off the tail of Godzilla and Shin Godzilla at the end. So is she going to be some kind of weird hybrid? I don't know.
She survived just to become some kind of a mutant that he's going to have to kill in the next movie.
I don't know, but they try to whitewash you. I did catch that.
Oh, yes, they cut right to the sunrise or whatever.
Bright hospital, well-lit hospital room. So yeah, they actually tried to do they tried to do the same thing in Shin Kamen Rider, but like, I'm not having in this movie,
they did indeed. Well, you were not emotionally invested in Shin Kamen Rider.
Especially comparing it to this movie.
Wait, did you watch Kamen Rider after this?
Half and half, because I fell asleep during the middle of Shin Kamen Rider. So
do you know that it took I'm gonna tell you right now, it took me almost a solid week to make it all the way through.
I was exhausted just watching that. I'm trying to keep up with what
is so over the top, but we'll get there. So we do have a happy ending.
Yeah, families reunited, and I can only assume he's making an honest woman out of her.
Yeah, let's go home.
Yeah, let's get married.
Yeah. Mrs. Kravitz, watch the baby for half an hour.
Do you get Godzilla? You haven't heard the last of this Godzilla either.
Of course not. So now we're getting into like Wolverine territory here.
Right.
Where it doesn't matter what you do to him. It looks like, as we get his head plummeting, it starts to regenerate. So would a head generate a new body, or would his body generate a new head? His body fell apart, though. Yeah, his whole body fell apart.
I was thinking, how brilliant would this be if this turned out being a prequel to Shin Godzilla? Like whatever's regenerating would be turning into Shin Godzilla.
That would be too confusing.
It would. They didn't set that up in Shin Godzilla, so they couldn't go there. But yeah, this is an emotional ride.
This is solid entertainment. This is, I mean, I don't want to buy into the hyperbole of would you guy tell you that it was a classic, that it was a masterpiece. A masterpiece.
As far as Godzilla movies go, I would concur with that.
It is a sight to behold, and I think it's because they've got a fantastic balance between this human element, and boy, talk about personal demons chasing after you. I keep going back to this, that it really is this guy's story, that he's just doing everything in his power, and this thing is just coming after him at every turn.
Now, you said this was made on a shoestring, and it really was. 15 million, I think, in American dollars.
That's crazy. That
worked out to the budget of this movie.
It's nuts.
And so worldwide, it's already done double that amount. They're looking at 10 million for its opening weekend. In America, far and away, that's it, huh? The most a Japanese Godzilla film has ever made. I think the closest to it, what I read, was Godzilla 2000, and that made 10 million in its entire American run. So This is only its first weekend.
Yeah, I hope that it sits in theaters for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I hope. I hope word of mouth gets out.
Yeah, like you said, the Fathom events, maybe you get 2 days if you're lucky. And even then, it's usually during the middle of the week.
Yeah.
So I was blown away by this.
I completely was. And I think maybe it has an edge on Shin Godzilla as well. Yes,
I agree.
Just because the human story here elevates it.
Yeah.
It's a perfect balance.
It's taken this long to find a human story that goes along with the giant monster attacks.
Yeah, because usually the only successful Godzilla movies completely successful Godzilla movies have human stories driven by the monsters. When you try to have a human story and the monster action is just kind of ancillary to that, it doesn't work. Like, all together. The monster action might still be awesome, but the movie as a whole doesn't work.
Right. You're holding your breath waiting for the next action sequence.
This, I think, the story is driven to some extent by the monster action, but not completely. It really takes these characters and their own stories to drive the story. It's compelling enough, and they're sympathetic enough for this to work. Like, as we said, I got into the story. I wasn't just looking at my watch waiting for the next Godzilla scene. So as a Godzilla fan, I can say unequivocally that this is a fantastic outing. And I really do hope that they do come out with a sequel, that Toho doesn't again say, oh, this is so good, we can't touch this.
We can't do it. We can't. Yeah, we can't touch it, which is fine. So if this was -1, do we go plus 100?
I guess. So did you, I was a little confused going to this, why it's called -1, but the reasoning being is that Japan is already devastated by the war. So now with Godzilla's threat, they're going into the negative, so they're not, they're still in the red. They're not in the black. So that's why they call it Godzilla.
Maybe it'd be 0 event next one then.
Maybe
we're back in the 500 club.
Yeah, they can make it even with the next movie. But wow, this is great. This is really good. For buckets, I don't know, because again, with the 5 bucket, I think that's something you got to live with. That's really special stuff. Right. But I'm going to go 4.5 with this. I think 4.5 buckets.
That's super high for you. So I'm going to go 4 3/4.
Wow. So
it's just underneath there. It is compelling from beginning to end.
Yeah, and maybe with subsequent viewings, this will become a 5.
Yeah, maybe we can just fast forward through the Finding Tochibana sequence. And,
right.
But yeah, no, I mean, outside of that one little sequence, there's really nothing wasted here. Can only go downhill from here. Yes.
Yeah, Toho, you got a lot to live up to now with this sequel.
Yeah.
Don't get worried, though. Don't get too worried about it.
Yeah. Yes, correct. Don't overthink yourself. Just make a sequel, please. Oh, I don't know. That one was pretty good. Probably don't need another one. Yeah, we do. There's so many bad movies that get sequels.
Yeah.
Give me a sequel to a good movie. So.
All right. So let's go to the concession stand, shall we?
Okay, let's go.
What did you bring? What did you bring to the table?
Yeah, so here's the deal. I am going to honor our second feature, which almost defies description. So we are going to delve into one of the more uniquely named candy bars on the market today.
Okay.
I give you the Whatchamacallit.
Oh.
So the fascinating thing about the Whatchamacallit is that there is nothing fascinating about it. It is clearly just on its name alone is enough to compel people to be like, oh, I wonder what that is. Maybe I should get that. My brother was a huge Whatchamacallit fan. He would always get that or the Zagnut bar.
The Zagnut bar.
Yeah. So anyways, introduced in 1978 by the Hershey Company, the Whatchamacallit consists of a bar of peanut-flavored crisp that utilizes peanut butter as the flavoring agent, coated in a thin layer of chocolate with a layer of caramel and another layer of chocolate, and that is it. So there's really nothing special about it, like I said, other than the name. But it's still on the market today. The Whatchamacallit.
But texture and taste-wise, it is pretty unique. It's not like anything else out there. Right,
because the crisp like breaks in it and it becomes like that kind of like falls apart in your mouth. But in 2008, the Hershey Company began to change the ingredients, and they replaced the relatively expensive cocoa butter with cheaper oil substitutes. And obviously this was a cost-cutting measure. And because of this, the FDA has a rule that products that do not contain cocoa butter cannot legally be described as milk chocolate. So now if you buy this, it is instead referred to as chocolate candy.
Oh, so they don't even call it chocolatey like the Charleston Chew does?
Nope. So if you see a chocolate candy-like substance as one of your main ingredients or the description, that is because it is lacking
really
cocoa butter.
Disappointing. Hershey, no less.
Yes.
The kings of chocolate. Chocolatiers.
I don't know about that. If you talk to like anybody from anywhere outside of the U.S., Hershey chocolate is kind of frowned upon.
Well, I read something in doing research for one of these concession stands that I did, that Europeans feel that the Hershey chocolate has a vomity aftertaste.
There you go. Well, it's like if you eat it, it's like wax. I like the dark chocolates,
but you can't deny that Hershey in America is the
Hershey,
the chocolatier of choice. They're the standard.
Right. Yeah.
But so hearing this is kind of disappointing that they would cut costs that much, like not use the chocolate offering. And so Whatchamacallit to me was always, like you say, kind of an outside the box choice when you'd go to the candy. You'd have to be really in the mood for that specific bar. But it's not a bad taste. It's just like, usually for me, I'll go for the Reese's peanut butter cup if I want a peanut butter fix, right?
Yes,
not necessarily the Whatchamacallit.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you want to go off the beaten path and get that Whatchamacallit.
And they're still out there. I mean, you can go to the Whatchamacallit website, and actually they have the big king size bars. They've got the little bite size bars. But in 2009, Hershey introduced the thingamajig. So you sense a theme going here.
Yes.
And that features chocolate, cocoa crisps, and peanut butter inside. And then it was reintroduced in late 2011 on a supposedly permanent basis. However, as of 2012, it is no longer being produced. So we had a Whatchamacallit, and then we had a thingamajig, and then in 2021, Hershey held a naming contest for their new bar. And it was a $5,000 prize for the most creative name, along with a year's supply of the confection. And out of 43,000 entries, they declared the Whatchamacallit the winning entry.
So wait a second. There is, at this moment in time, there is no Whatchamacallit on the market. Is that what you're saying?
No, Whatchamacallit is still on the market. The thingamajig is no longer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the Whatchamacallit's still out there, although it's chocolate candy, not milk chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
Thingamajig was discontinued in 2012. And then 2 years ago was this introduction of the Whatchamacallit, which is chocolate, Cocoa Crisp, crispy rice, and peanut butter ingredients. So it basically sounds like the thingamajig.
Right. So the Whatchamacallit and the Whatchamacallit exist concurrently.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, and the rapper actually identifies the contest winner, a Lisa M. from Framingham, Massachusetts.
I wonder how many bars consist of a year's supply, like one a day.
One a day? I don't know. Are they consulting a doctor to tell you one a week's enough?
I don't know.
But Whatchamacallit, yeah. So, and apparently there is a huge recipes that includes the Whatchamacallit in their recipes, whether it be pies, cookies, cheesecakes, and cupcakes.
I seem to remember the Whatchamacallit logo not changing. I think that
it's pretty consistent. It's just word type. And
because
it's pretty.
You said 78, right? It was
78 was when it was introduced. Yes.
So that makes sense because the original color layout of those packages looked very earth tone, like very 70s.
Yeah, a lot of beige and browns, maybe some red thrown in there. Yeah, and I think there was some serious marketing going on in the early 80s with the Whatchamacallit because it was a pretty big candy when it came out.
Mm.
So, certified kosher as well. But, yeah, I figured we're going to get into this next movie, which kind of defies description. So maybe the Whatchamacallit was called. Nothing too exciting about it, but...
An unsung member of the candy family.
And one that maybe someone's listening right now and going, I remember that candy.
Yeah, or I want one right now.
Yeah. I didn't even know they still existed.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, this next movie does exist. According to Jim.
According to me. According to Jim. Well, we'll see. Yeah.
Oh, this baby's large in charge on Amazon Prime. Free for the taking.
Yes, although you got to know what it's called on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, when we first, because we had talked that this was in the theater to talk about your Fathom events. This was popping up in theaters a couple months ago. And we talked about it. It kind of came and went, and we never added it to the list. But I think that this was an apt pairing. Although I don't think that you appreciate it as much as I did. This is crazy, balls to the wall. It's so hyper. It is, and I'm not familiar at all with the original Kamen Rider.
No, I don't know. I don't know if it was ever played, the show in America. The show itself, Kamen Rider, ran in Japan from 71 to 73, and they made 98 episodes.
It never made it over here. Even rebranded as Masked Rider. It just I know nothing of this.
Or if it did, it never played on any of my local stations.
Right. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that Christine is not here because I think she does have a little more familiarity with this franchise. Mm-hmm. But obviously this, just like Ultraman and Godzilla, this is kind of a new take on this character.
Yeah. Same director, Hideki Anno, who co-directed Shin Godzilla, directed Shin Ultraman, and directed this one. But again,
3 completely different movies.
It would be impossible to say that there was a shared universe from this. The hyper stylized aesthetics of this movie. I mean, right off the bat, you get a motorcycle truck chase sequence, and the editing is so over the top. I actually wrote in my notes that this is a manic mix of Power Rangers, Kill Bill, and Scott Pilgrim.
I don't know
Yeah,
how else to, I don't know how else to really
that's pretty
describe this.
apt. I would think that would lean more on the Power Ranger side than the other two.
Which, well, I mean, some of these kills, the only thing you're missing is the 8-bit graphics of the coins coming out of their heads for the Scott Pilgrim. I enjoyed this for what it was. It is a lot to take in. It is exhausting, but it's
exhausting, right? So this is, again, based on the show Kamen Rider. So really, basically, the story is about this evil organization called Shocker. So they make augmented human beings, right?
So every character is Aug.
They mix animals and insects with humans. So it's Spider Aug or Grasshopper Aug, as is what this Kamen Rider is supposed to be. But Bat Aug. And all these things are just crazy. They either have helmets that look like the creature that they're supposed to be modeled on, or in the case of Bat Aug, it's actually a being that looks like.
Yeah, he's the only one who really, the butterfly Aug kind of mutates a little
sort of,
bit,
but he's got a helmet too.
He does have a helmet. Maybe eventually Bat Aug. We didn't see enough of Bat Aug to know whether or not he had a helmet.
So the professor, the genius behind Shocker and making these augmented beings, has a guilty conscience about it. So one of the last ones that he makes, which is the Grasshopper Aug, he gives his own independent thought to. So he's not brainwashed by Shocker. So the professor does this so that this Shin Kamen Rider or Kamen Rider will fight against Shocker with the help of the professor's daughter. So that's basically it.
So he becomes an anti-Shocker.
He becomes an anti-Shocker, yes.
Yeah, that's confusing.
And so the daughter, Ruriko, is not just a regular human herself. She's like a human computer who can download things from touching your head.
I didn't quite understand this as well, because we also have this robot K that's kind of overseeing this thing going on. I don't know.
Heck is going on here. This is ridiculous. This is really, really out there stuff. I didn't like Shin Ultraman, not because it was ridiculous, because you got to take, most of
not enough monsters.
Is ridiculous. Godzilla is ridiculous, the whole concept. But watching this and then watching Godzilla Minus One, it's like watching a movie. Godzilla Minus One, and then watching some, I don't want to belittle anybody who made this film, but Godzilla Minus One is made to bring you into a reality and made you to care about these characters. This is just an exhausting one battle sequence to the other. You don't really get a sense of who these people are or why you should care about them.
But is this because it's based on a kid's TV show from the 70s? Like, from what I understand, the initial trailer, and I didn't look it up, but the initial trailer for this movie was a direct replication of the opening sequence for the kids' TV show.
Yeah, but
they're leaning into the fact that this is over the top.
But this is not a kid's movie. Like when
when
Kamen Rider punches people, he explodes their heads.
This is where I'm talking about, like, the Kill Bill aspect of it, because it's just it's gore for the sake of being gore. Like, you could have done without this, except for the fact that your main character is now haunted by the fact that every time he puts his helmet on, he has this power. And then we even talk about prana, which is like this internal energy source.
It's the force.
It's the force. It's literally the force. Yes. That they're stealing from each other. But yeah, every 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes, probably every 12 minutes, we're introduced to a new Aug. Like you said, whether it's Bat Aug or Spider Aug, which he was phenomenal.
The first guy, the first Aug.
Yeah. Visually, there's a lot going on here. And I'm like, this is just insane.
So it's very hard to keep up with this as well, because the dialogue never stops.
No.
Like, these people are telling you what's going on screen. I'm like, they could take a lesson from Godzilla Minus One. Have some silence every once in a while. I don't need to be told everything.
This is frenetic.
That's obvious, Yeah. Like, each Aug is telling them, like, exactly, you hit me here, so I can do this now. And I can, just show me. Don't you have to tell me everything.
And again, this is also subtitles.
So there's so much dialogue that it's hard to watch what's going on screen because you're
this
just
is why
reading.
I don't like watching anime subtitles, because I want to invest in the what's unfolding on screen. Yeah,
and you're, especially during this Spider Og does not stop talking, so you're just like furiously trying to read until before the subtitle disappears and the next one appears. The Kill Bill observation is apt as well, because Kamen Rider has to go through a number of assassins to get to the main assassin, which is basically Kill Bill. So, Spider Og is only the first one. So you're kind of lulled into thinking this is the main bad guy. No, he
gets killed pretty quickly.
Yeah. And then there's all various different Ogs that they go through. The Bat Og, which is the freakiest.
He's Bat Guano crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasp Og. We got Scorpion Og.
That was my favorite. And they kill her off camera.
Really? I know. Oh, yeah. By the way, we dispatched her. Yeah.
And you don't even see it happen.
I actually wrote that was quick. Yeah.
They build her up so much, and she's probably got the coolest design out of any of them as well.
Yeah. There was a point during that Wasp Og, and he goes, he ran away without a fight. He goes, yes, that is his strength. That is also his weakness. It's like, what kind of double speak is that, Yoda?
Well, again, you don't have to tell me that. If the story is good enough, I will know that without you having to spell everything out for me, which is what
we have do. Like the Pulp Fiction boys showing up, Sam Jackson and John Travolta.
Oh, those two, the two government operatives.
Suits. Yeah. When it turns out that Ichiro, her brother, is Butterfly Og. Yeah. They clearly did not redub the dialogue, because it sounds like sometimes they're talking in a bathtub when they have the helmets on. I'm gonna get you. I'm just like, you couldn't have re-recorded that at some point.
But I was just writing down some of this dialogue to show you my point. Oh no, in the air, I'm at a great disadvantage.
Yes.
I'm like, you don't need to say that.
That is a direct translation. That's where I'm thinking that they're really kind of leaning in. It's weird because it is graphic. So if you're making a kid's version of this, I don't know.
But yeah, and even if I did want to know that, the dialogue itself is very silly. It's very rudimentary. It's a weird tone in where, it's got these very base level characters and dialogue and motivations, yet it's extremely violent at the same time.
Yeah. And then we're introduced to Ichimoji, who is the Grasshopper Og 2.0.
Yeah, that's one too many Grasshopper Ogs.
Yeah, there's a lot of grasshoppers. Although I will tell you, there's a sequence, there's a chase sequence in the tunnel where the dark black grasshopper group is chasing after him. And I thought that was fantastic.
The nest of grasshoppers.
Yeah, the swarm. And it's Matrix level, flying through the air, drop kicking each other. So the original Kamen Rider and this Ichimoji grasshopper have this fight, and it is so ridiculously over the top because they're punching each other in the air. It's comic gold.
Yeah, and it's like looking at a video game. Yes. Really, that's the level of CGI here.
Yeah. Although I will tell you, and I read this, the one character breaks his leg. The main character breaks his leg, and so the other grasshopper has to step in and kind of replace him. And I guess that's a direct reference to the original TV show, which was the actor broke his leg and they had to bring in a replacement. It's just kind of like when Bo and Luke Duke wouldn't renew their contract, so they brought in Vance and.
I'm surprised they didn't tell that to me in the movie itself. Oh, the actor broke his leg. This is a reference to the TV show.
Yes, correct. And we get KK Og, we got a chameleon Og.
The KK Og, that's an unfortunate name.
But these two are at odds, and they realize they have to band together.
But that guy was did he not the KK Og, because he was a cross between a chameleon and a praying mantis.
Mantis, yeah.
But he reminded me of what's the guy's name from Monsters Inc. that could disappear?
Oh, Randall.
Yeah, that was like Og. He's like the Randall.
Oh, I could have been a Randall Og. But then Ruriko was killed.
Yeah, that's the whole point of Kamen Rider existing, because the professor wanted him to protect the daughter.
Yeah. Well done. Job.
Yep.
Security gone out the window.
So, and there's a lot of talk about maintaining happiness. or achieving happiness. Like that is the ultimate goal of everyone in this movie, bad guys and good guys. Like the bad guys kill people to maintain their happiness, but not the good guys. So there's a lot of talk about happiness in
and
this.
habitat realms and stealing prana. It's there's a lot of weird shit going on. Yeah, basically at the end of it, Hongo is killed, but not before she downloads his essence prana into the helmet.
So that the new guy wears the old helmet. So
yes, correct. Although he did
Hongo,
get a new outfit. He got a whole new
outfit.
motorcycle, and he got a new helmet.
But then Hongo is talking to him in the helmet as well.
Can you feel the wind? Can you feel the wind, Hongo?
I'm like, if there's a sequel, there's going to be even more dialogue now in the sequel than there was in this one.
Internal dialogue in his head.
Yeah.
You have to explain. It'll be 20 minutes to explain to me why this guy's in his helmet talking. And yet she's somehow still alive as well because she wanted her brother to come. There's room enough in here for all of us. So she is in the helmet.
I think so.
This is one sequel I don't need.
You see, I think I talked you out of liking this movie.
No, I still liked it. I still enjoyed it. It is so bat crap crazy, bat guano crazy. It is so hyper. But like I said, it took me a solid week to get through this because I could take it. I only had to take it in small doses.
Yeah, like I said, I watched it over 2 days because I only made it like halfway through and then I fell asleep and then picked it up the next day. But yeah, it's much. It is much. That's I agree. So, but it's on Amazon Prime. And I think out of the 3 Shin movies, I did enjoy this the most. Are you serious? Even more so than Shin Godzilla?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Shin Godzilla.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because of all the bureaucracy and
there's some weird. Yeah, like there's a lot of running from office space to office space. Let's go have a meeting. Let's go over here and have another meeting. So I'm gonna give this 3.
Okay, that's
I want
right in the middle. Right in the middle.
I want someone to go and check this out.
Yeah, I wasn't into it. I'm gonna give 2.5. There were some of the sequences were, the fighting sequences were good.
Yeah,
but as a whole, I wasn't really on board.
That's fine. Godzilla Minus One more than made up for everything. Oh yes, this week.
It absolutely did. Please go see that. Please go see Godzilla Minus One. I'm just sorry that I didn't get to see it in IMAX. It would have been amazing in IMAX, I'm sure.
Oh, I thought you were still talking about Shin Kamen Rider.
Oh, no.
Imagine if we gone to the Fathom event for this. You would have been forced to watch it for 2 hours.
I would have been like in a coma by the end of it.
End this.
Because the Shin Ultraman, the reason I didn't like that is because it was too disjointed. Like we discussed on that episode, it was like, 3 or 4 episodes of a TV show glued together.
Yeah.
If they had one follow through story with that, I think it would have been, because the story itself, this wasn't as ridiculous as to me at least, as Shin Kamen Rider was. I think Ultraman had a lot going for it. But yeah, I didn't feel the same way about this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough. Do we want to talk about what else we did this week?
Oh yes, let's do that. What else did we do this week?
I want to just mention Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is now on Netflix.
Yes, the animated.
I'm about 6 episodes in. The entire cast of the original live action Edgar Wright movie is back playing their roles.
Even Brie Larson, is she on there?
Brie Larson is in there. Oh. She is. I'm enjoying it immensely, but I want to mention, not only did I see Godzilla Minus One in the theater this week, but I was in the theater on Friday to go see Napoleon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Thanksgiving.
No, stop. And I will say, extremely disappointing.
What? Talk about a long one. Is that another 3-hour odyssey?
It is. It's 2.5. But I'm going to say right now, not once did he eat a Ziggy Piggy ice cream. And even though it was raining significantly in Waterloo, not one water slide. So
tell me this. Did the guys from Time Bandits ever show up in Napoleon?
No, I didn't see them at all either.
No? There was no puppet show?
I'm beginning to think that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Time Bandits not historically accurate at all. So, and to top it off, he went right. Joaquin Phoenix went right into Kevin Costner Robin Hood territory. Didn't even attempt a French accent. It's a long movie. There's a lot going on, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Because now that we both have Apple Plus,
yes,
I believe they've been advertising Napoleon, so I think eventually it will show up on Apple Plus.
It probably will, and I think that probably sitting at home watching it. Don't get me wrong. There's some fantastic battle sequences, choreography on this. It's Ridley Scott, so
yeah,
some of the stuff is very well done. It's shot in like really weird blue hues. And it does jump around. It covers like 60 years of his life. A lot of it has to do with his love letters that he wrote back to Josephine. So,
does he ever once complain about being short?
They don't mention it at all, nor do they even attempt to make him short. It is never brought up. He does make a petite reference to a 15-year-old at one point, but that's about it. Before he beds her.
And I bet they don't even play Me and My Shadow over the closing credits either.
They do not. But since we do have Apple Plus, and you said you're not all the way through it, but can we at least discuss Monarch?
Yes, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. I'm up to the episode, I think it's number 3, where they blow up the bomb in Godzilla's face, as you mentioned before.
So you're an episode behind, because I think
I'm an episode behind. Yeah, no. there is one that I think premiered this week, and I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, because I sat down to watch it on Wednesday, and they're like, "Oh, coming Friday." I mean, so we're already changing the release date of these things.
Yeah, I generally watch them on the weekend, so I'll probably watch it tonight. The latest episode.
All right. So Matt Fraction and Chris Black, who I think are largely attached to the legendary Godzilla movies, are in control of this. And this is there's a lot going on here. The first episode jumped around time-wise so much. I actually had to stop and I had to go back and Google some of these characters, because we're going from 1952 to 1959 to 2015. And here's this guy, but this is his younger version. And there's, look, that's the John Goodman's character from Kong Skull Islands. But here he is as a young guy. It is a lot to take in up front. And
let me tell you, I don't think that's actually John Goodman running in the first episode.
You don't think so?
When he's running away from the spider. No, I think I
want to know when that takes place within the context of Kong Skull Island. Because obviously his character dies in that movie, does he not?
Does he? Oh, we'll have to watch Skull Island again. I don't remember if John Goodman dies in that one.
There's 2 characters that find out that they have the same father. And his father had 2 different families. And I kept thinking that this is Ken Watanabe's character from the legendary universe, and it's not. It's not Dr. Serizawa. It's a completely different new character.
I've been reading a lot of stuff, headlines like a Godzilla series without Godzilla, seems to be the big complaint about this.
Well, the whole point is it's Monarch. It's
exactly.
It's how Monarch, who is a huge part of those legendary movies, fleshing out who and what they are and how they started.
You can't have Godzilla overload either.
No,
I wouldn't want this to be a quote unquote Godzilla show. They've given me just enough of him so far where I've been satisfied.
Yeah, because they do flashback to the one character, Kate, and her exposure to the G event, as they refer to it. So it was when Godzilla attacks San Francisco in 2015, 2014.
Right.
So a lot of the current day stuff takes place a year after that event. But we have so much flashbacks to all these other characters and how they flesh out and how they become Monarch and how they meet each other. And, you've got Wyatt Russell, who is playing Lee Shaw. And then his father, Kurt Russell, is playing the current version of that character.
There are a couple of dissolves that they do in between the either the new scene to the old scene or the old scene to the new scene. Wyatt Russell has a bigger kind of like a square jaw than Kurt Russell does. and you see Kurt Russell trying to square out his jaw when they're doing the I just thought it was funny. I think
looks like my son.
Yeah. Okay, we're doing the dissolve now. Try to look like him.
Yeah. And action. Wyatt plays this character like kind of stoic, and Kurt, on the other hand, is Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
So he's a little more flamboyant. He's a little more, I'm in for right now. I'm enjoying it. You're not getting a lot of Titan monster action, but that's fair.
And there's a couple of they've got some new creatures that they've thrown in so far as well. Because again, I don't know what the rights issues are between Legendary and Toho, but they probably have to pay for every single one that they use.
I mean, they built up their own. We saw that with all those Titans at the end of King of Monsters.
Yeah.
So, they are building out.
So they've got their own stockpile, but it's always nice to have just like I loved seeing Ghidorah and Rodan and Mothra and Godzilla King of the Monsters. You do want that as a Godzilla fan. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hold them back for a big reveal. So it's a lot going on right now. Like I said, the time jumps are all over the place. If you have Apple Plus, check them out. I don't know how many episodes are dropping. I think maybe 10. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's decent. It's like an X-Files kind of a vibe to it.
Very much an X-Files, especially the earlier where Kate and Bill Rando, who is John Goodman's character, the younger version of him, kind of meet up and they start cataloging these creatures and are really the Scully and Mulder start of this whole Monarch. Yeah.
So if you're invested in the Legendary Godzilla movies, this will just whet your appetite for the next one. I'm sure that's probably what they mean to do.
Just kind of fleshes out the back.
Yeah.
I don't like that a Godzilla without a Godzilla can still exist within the universe.
Yeah, exactly. They would have called it Godzilla if it was supposed to be a Godzilla show. Just tying this show and Godzilla Minus One together. Gareth Edwards, I read an interview with him where he was reacting to seeing Godzilla Minus One. And Gareth Edwards is the director of the first Legendary Godzilla movie. Also famously the director of Rogue One, which we love so much on this show. But Gareth Edwards said he watched Minus One and was jealous that's what he should have done with the 2014 Godzilla film.
So I did
But I don't know. But they're two separate things, right? So
correct, right?
Yeah, they're the Legendary series. I love to death, so I can't say one's better than the other.
We're both on board.
Yeah.
I'm liking what they're doing.
Yeah, and this is just like a plethora. Like when Godzilla King of the Monsters, I know this is a controversial take, but we both love this movie. If you went back in time and told us as 12, 13-year-olds that we'd have this much Godzilla, when we were 50-year-olds, why couldn't they have woken up and realized this back when we were kids? But this is the next best thing, right? That this is just a surplus. I couldn't even imagine getting this much Godzilla content when I was a kid, like in theaters, no less. Because less than a year from now, we're going to have the sequel to Godzilla versus Kong, and it's been heavily rumored that I was just talking about putting new Toho kaiju into these Legendary movies. That one of the trailers hints at possibly Space Godzilla showing up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to have to band together.
All right. So now let's talk about what we're doing.
Yeah, what are we doing next week?
It'll be our Christmas episode, right? We know that. So
we do know that, yes.
So maybe we'll bring some Christmas favorites to the table.
I guess you'll have to tune in to find out.
Out what we come up with. Yes.
What could they possibly choose? I'm going to pick the shortest movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a new one out just now with Eddie Murphy on Prime. What is it? Candy Cane Lane or something?
Actually, it's called? Yes. As a matter of fact, I started watching Spirited last night on Apple Plus.
Oh yeah.
I'm not more than 10 minutes into it, but that's one. Sometimes you got to take Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds in small doses because they can be just as manic as Shin Kamen Rider.
And I just want to also shout out that it's 2 years old now, But a movie called 8-Bit Christmas is on Max, formerly HBO Max, and it's really good, really funny. It's about a kid in 1988 whose only wish for Christmas is to get a Nintendo system. So it's almost like a modern version, a semi-modern version of Christmas Story.
Interesting. Okay.
8-Bit Christmas. Right. Yeah, seek it out.
Okay. Shin Kamen Rider, Amazon Prime. Go check it out if you want. I dare you to go watch it.
And again, it is called Shin Masked Rider on Amazon Prime.
But more importantly, Godzilla Minus One.
Yes. If you don't do anything else before our
theater,
if you don't do anything else before our next episode, go watch that.
I think it's no secret that we both loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks as always. And we'll see you next time.
Yep, bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.